When I was in eighth grade, my dad got married. And so this meant that I was going to have to live with my new stepmom and her two sons. Well, this turned out to be a problem because I had my own way of life and the way that I liked things, and they had theirs. And so this caused problems because we didn't always like each other particularly, and we didn't always get along. And so it turns out that the first century church actually had a similar problem to this. That for a lot of them, for the first time, that they had Jews and Gentiles coming together as Christians to live with each other. And they didn't always get along with each other as well. And this actually got to be such a problem that Paul actually had to write a letter to them about it. And in this letter he states, I, therefore, the prisoner of in the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of the calling to which you have been called, with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love, making every effort to maintain the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you are called to the one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. In this, Paul actually covers two major points. First, he tells the church in Ephesus to live in unity. And second, what he tells them to do are a couple ways in which they can foster unity and the way that they can actually live within this. And so the first question that arises from this that I'd like to tackle is, why is unity even important in the first place? And luckily, Paul actually gives an answer for this as well. He states, just as you are called to the one hope of your calling. So, what is this calling? Well, it's the gospel. That God loved us so much that he sent his only son to die for our sins. And so, in unity, that we're able to have a love for other Christians that we wouldn't ever be able to have if we were apart. And so this really just goes to show the importance of unity, that God loved us so much that we should share that love with other Christians. But how do we actually even achieve this unity? Well, God gives us a clue to that as well. He states that Christians should live their lives with all humility and gentleness, with patience, bearing with one another in love. And so I think the first couple of those are kind of easier to understand, but I'd really like to focus in on that last one, where he states, bearing with one another in love. And so bearing with one another in love can actually be translated as kind of as putting up with. And I know within our jobs and in our schools that there are several things that we don't want to do, but we still go through them anyway just because we have to. Well, Paul actually even raises the standard higher than this, where he says to do these things in love. Just the love that unity provides as well, the love that unity fosters. And so that's one understanding of how we can accomplish unity. But I think going back to the beginning and where I started can really give a fuller explanation of how this can be done. And so as you may recall, that when my family came together, that we didn't always get along, just in the same way that the church in Ephesus didn't always get along. And so the way that my family was able to overcome our differences was by respecting each other always, even when we didn't want to and even when it was difficult. And additionally, whenever we had a problem, that we would bring it up with each other and that we'd be able to work through it in order to find a compromise or a solution to it. And so, even if we didn't realize it, that we were practicing unity, that we were increasing in love despite our differences. And so this is the same way that Paul calls the churches in Ephesus and all churches actually to live. That they would live in unity so that way they could increase their love for each other.